Dodge City was made by the Santa Fe Railroad. Fort Dodge was made by the Santa Fe Trail. Fort Dodge, established in 1865, was part of a series of early frontier forts that made the settlement of the West possible by protecting travelers along the Santa Fe Trail. Thus, Fort Dodge has historical significance, but has never been comprehensively evaluated for its eligibility to be placed on the National Historic Register. Of the 3 military installations in Kansas established to protect the Santa Fe Trail, including Fort Leavenworth, established in 1827, and Fort Larned, established in 1859, Fort Dodge remains the only fort not protected by Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. Unfortunately, this means that Fort Dodge buildings and cultural resources still lie unprotected. It is time for Fort Dodge to have its place in history and be protected by the National Park Service as a National Historic Site. Welcome to Wild West Podcast. My name is Brad Smalley, and today I will be your moderator.
And my name is Mike King, the writer and producer of Wild West Podcast.
Today we have with us Connie Penick. Connie currently serves as the Secretary of the Board of Directors for the Ford County Historical Society and is the committee chair, the Preservation of Fort Dodge Focus Group. Connie, we are delighted to have you here with us today and are very interested in a project you have taken the lead on, and that is the preservation of Fort Dodge. Connie, can you tell us and our audience why the Preservation of Fort Dodge project is so important to Kansas history and to Ford County?
Well, it's all very important, and there are a multitude of reasons why we should be saving our history. But one of the things that in my reading that I've come across is that it's because of Fort Dodge that we even have a Dodge City. And so the city is still here. So I think it would behoove us to save the fort who saved us. So that's just kind of one of the reasons why I think that it is important to preserve Fort Dodge.
Now, I want to ask you a question. Is Fort Dodge a historic landmark?
You know, to the people who are in Southwest Kansas, the answer would be yes. But to the people who are outside of our area, it is no, because it is not a designated historic site. While it's loaded with history, it's never been able to be on a register for historic sites.
Yet for years, I've had people that I've chatted with who come through and you mention Fort Dodge and their eyes just blow up. Like, well, is that something I can go see? So, yeah, that's a great interpretation. So how involved is the process to apply for historic recognition?
Well, it's as with anything that is worth doing. We want to do it well, and there have been several attempts to make this happen. But the steps are involved. You get local people who want to save the fort, so you have that interest. Then you have to go to the State Historical Society to let them know that you're interested in this historic site. Then you have to fill out an application, and then that application has to go to review board, and then that review board recommends it to someone up higher in the state would then have to sign off on it. Well, in our case with Fort Dodge, the little hiccup is ownership. We are still trying to get the owner to admit they own it, and that would be the state of Kansas. Now, the state of Kansas does understand they own it, but now that means that we need to go through more of our representatives, our senators, and the governor. So those are hard to get to.
Well, Connie, the next question you kind of already answered in part, but maybe just go into a little more detail, is how will getting Fort Dodge on the National Historic Register be of benefit?
Well, I think the largest benefit is financial. Because not only are we going to be able to save history and repurpose the buildings that are left, and that's only a few because we're almost too late. But we have some wonderful opportunity here. But if we get it on the National Register, it does open us up to grant funding at a federal level. And we believe that we could apply for grants that would not only enhance the area of Fort Dodge, but would enhance what they're doing there at the Veterans Administration with the Soldiers' Home, and help with those buildings as well. And we could also give the people who are residents there a purpose for saving their history and saving their home.
You mentioned the idea that it's almost too late. When you make that statement, can you kind of describe why it's almost too late?
When they started adding buildings to the fort, when it was building up and very important, they had over 100 cottages there. They also had the dwellings for the soldiers. And then they started building a hospital, and then they started building, other buildings necessary. Well, as the years pass, they started tearing those buildings down. And they all have historic value, whether it was in 1865 or it was 1965. But that's what's happening. These buildings are now being systematically torn down. We have lost, there were over 100 cottages out there. And now there's not that many. I'm not sure what the number is, but it's limited. And the junior officers' quarters that was being utilized at some time has now been kind of let fall apart. And it probably doesn't have maybe another 2 years before it just may fall down and we lose all that history. We have the Custer's House. We call it Custer's House, and where the administrator lives. And we'd like to make sure that one is preserved. There are other buildings. There's a museum out there that's actually housed in one of the original buildings. We'd like very much not only to save that building, but save the information and the artifacts that are in that building. So, yeah, and it as they decay and fall and they tear them down, it may just completely disappear.
So what is all included in the preservation of Fort Dodge?
A lot of legwork, making a lot of contacts with people on the local level, the state level, the federal level, getting the interest, like what we're doing today with your podcast, and reaching the public and letting them know that it's all going to disappear if we don't take the time to save it. And, there's just so much information from the decades from when they first started at the turn of the century to the veterans who have lived there and raised families there. And we even have young people who are coming back and saying to us, I remember when I lived there and we did this. And those are just stories that are going to be lost if we don't save it.
So I think then kind of what you're saying is we're not just looking to save a National Historic Site, we're looking to save a historic community. Yes,
I think that's an excellent way to put it.
So that's it for now. To receive updated progress on developments for the preservation of Fort Dodge, you can join the Facebook page at www.facebook.com/preservefortdodge. In addition, you can learn more about the history of Fort Dodge by going to worldfamousgunfighters.weebly.com/fortdodge.html. Links to these websites are provided in the description portion of this podcast.